How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and you know we got to talk about Steve Bannon and a Trump situation that is breaking right now. It's about 2:06 p.m. Eastern time, and today is Wednesday, January the 3rd of 2018. This is a crazy story, and it all started this morning when some of Steve Bannon's book has been leaked to the media. Now, I'm not quite sure what the name of the book is. I'm not trying to promote the man's book, but I will place a link to the article, probably from Breitbart, in the description box below, because as you know, Steve Bannon at one point was part of Trump's administration, and before that, he was over at Breitbart. Now he's back over at Breitbart doing his thing. I've been seeing some things from Bannon lately. I think he doesn't like Jared Kushner at all. I'm not quite sure because of the whole Jewish angle or whatever, but he doesn't like Jared Kushner. He also doesn't really like Don Jr. that much. And he attacked not only Kushner, not only Don Jr., but also basically Trump. And I think also maybe even Paul Manafort in the new book from the excerpts. Now, the excerpts were about the meeting that Don Jr., Jared Kushner, and maybe Paul Manafort had at Trump Tower as it relates to the Russian lawyers. Remember that thing? I did a video about that. And if I can find that, I'll put that in the description box for you. Remember that thing where they went and they were talking about it was random stuff. I think what came out was that they were learning about adoption and stuff, but they went into it allegedly with trying to get opposition research. And it was a whole thing about that because we found out that the Clintons did the same thing with the Ukrainians, even worse. So it was a whole big mess. But basically, Bannon came out and said, you know what? I think that was treasonous, unpatriotic, and just downright bad. Those were not his exact words, but I'll place the exact words, of course, in the box. He basically was saying you shouldn't have done it, and you probably should have called the FBI immediately. Now, I don't understand why he's doing this. Maybe it's to sell books. Maybe it's to get his name out there. Maybe it's because he's upset that he got fired from the Trump administration. I don't know what it is, but whatever the case may be, he is out there saying these things, and it's going to be in a new book, and it's out there. So Trump obviously did not like what was being said about him, about his son-in-law, and anyone else that's in his staff. So he came out and gave a scathing, and when I say scathing, I do mean scathing reaction to Bannon in a statement. We're going to read through the whole thing right now. Steve Bannon has nothing to do with me or my presidency. When he was fired, he not only lost his job, he lost his mind. Steve was a staffer who worked for me after I already won the nomination by defeating 17 candidates, often described as the most talented field ever assembled in the Republican Party. Now that he is on his own, Steve is learning that winning isn't as easy as I make it look. Steve had very little to do with our historic victory, which was delivered by the forgotten men and women of this country. Yet Steve had everything to do with the loss of a Senate seat in Alabama held for more than 30 years by Republicans. You're talking about Roy Moore and Luther Strange. I remember that. That's pretty interesting because Trump talked about Luther Strange. He wanted him to be the actual guy that's in there. But you had Bannon talking about he was the establishment, this, that, and the third. Let's do Roy Moore. But I digress for now. Steve doesn't represent my base. He's only in it for himself. Steve pretends to be at war with the media, which he calls the opposition party, yet he spent his time at the White House leaking false information to the media to make himself seem far more important than he was. It is the only thing he does well. Steve was rarely in a one-on-one meeting with me and only pretends to have had influence to fool a few people with no access and no clue, whom he helped write phony books. We have many great Republican members of Congress and candidates who are very supportive of the Make America Great Again agenda. Like me, they love the United States of America and are helping to finally take our country back and build it up rather than simply seeking to burn it down. Now, that was pretty scathing from Trump. And I think this is going to be something that takes a hit at Breitbart, also Steve Bannon, because Bannon was kind of riding off the coattails of Trump, basically endorsing him. It's like, hey, this is my guy. I love him. I like him or whatever. Even though he fired him, he was still in good graces. Obviously, he's not. And I don't really understand what Bannon's actual goal is. Maybe it's to get the website Breitbart more viewers, but I don't see why that would be the case because Breitbart, I go there all the time. It's a very popular website, probably one of the most popular news websites on the internet, especially a non-mainstream media news website outside of your CNNs, ABCs, CBS's, Fox News, etc. It's a very popular website people go to. It also has radio show. I think Kurt Schilling has a radio show on Breitbart. It's a very popular place. So I don't really know what the point of this is. I think one thing may be a personal beef between him and Jared Kushner. Like I said, I don't know if it's the Jewish thing or if it's a personal situation between the two of them. Whatever the case may be, there's most certainly friction there. But I don't have a whole lot more to say. This is crazy. I think Trump pretty much said what needed to be said about Bannon. What I want to see is the reaction from the liberal media, because remember, the liberal media was calling Bannon a white supremacist, talking about, oh, we got a KKK member in the White House. It's white supremacists in the White House. How can you really assign Bannon and his alleged, I don't think he's a racist or nothing like that, but people say he is. How can you now assign Bannon and his alleged KKK membership, which is not true, but how can you assign that to Trump after Trump has not only fired him, but also publicly just basically disavowed Steve Bannon? Okay, this is the equivalent of saying, you know what, I do not want to be affiliated with you anymore. I fired you. Go about your business. Okay. Your agenda is not my agenda. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the mainstream media, especially the liberal media, is going to take this. I don't think they'll give him much credit. And when I mean him, I'm talking about Donald Trump. They won't give him much credit for firing Steve Bannon and distance himself away from him. They'll pretty much still say that Trump is a racist or all this and that. That's like they're doing right now with the whole North Korea situation about the nuclear button. They're going to talk about that rather than this. But this story, I think, can't really be ignored. Maybe that's what Bannon wants because he's able to sell his book, which is coming out pretty soon. If it's not already out, I don't really know. I'm not going to be a guy that buys a book. I'm not necessarily a Bannon hater, but this statement from Trump puts Bannon in a different light than I really imagined him. I imagine Bannon to just be kind of a sort of a loose cannon, a maverick, somebody that you would need to do your dirty work for you if it came down to that. But now I'm seeing Bannon maybe in a different way. But I really want to see Bannon's reaction to Trump's reaction, okay? Because Bannon put the book out there, it's leaked, and you see things from it. I want to see what Bannon says as a response to this here. That response, in my humble opinion, will tell me more than the excerpts from the book will be able to tell me, because you'd be able to get a direct reaction from him rather than something that's been given to a writer, author, whatever, and then crafted in a way that may not have come from Bannon himself. But that's pretty much all I got to say. What do you think? Do you think that this statement from Trump is going to haunt Bannon? I'm seeing different headlines on mainstream media. They're saying that Bannon has come back to haunt Trump. Do you think that Trump's statements will haunt Bannon? Because remember, Bannon, before he came to the White House, was a big wig, a big top dog over at Breitbart. Now he's back being the big wig top dog over at Breitbart. I'm not quite sure what level he is in the actual company. And before I continue, I want to retract what I said about Kushner, about the whole Jewish thing, because Breitbart is ran by Jews. I'm pretty sure that Andrew Breitbart, rest in peace, was Jewish. So that might not be the right way. But I don't know what his problem is with Jared Kushner. Maybe it's the globalist thing. Maybe he thinks he's a liberal. I don't know what it is. If you know what his problem is with Jared Kushner, and I know some of you guys don't like Kushner, if you know what the problem is, please let me know in the comments below. But the response to this is going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see it. But do you think that this statement from Trump is indicative of how Steve Bannon is? Is this his personality? Did you see that from Bannon while he was in the White House, before and after, now that he's in or back over at Breitbart being the big wig over there? Do you think that Bannon is right? Do you think that his statements about Kushner, about Don Jr., about the meeting being unpatriotic, is that and the third, do you think that's true? And if you think that way, then please explain to me why. Are you someone who did not like Bannon at the beginning, calling him a racist, a white supremacist, is that and the third, and now you like him? Or do you still feel the same way? And if you feel the same way about Bannon, as far as him being a racist, white supremacist, or whatever, are you glad that Trump has A, fired him, and B, basically disavow him publicly? with a scathing statement. It wasn't just a simple Twitter thing. I had to read the statement, and I've actually been able to vet that statement in multiple sources. So this is a real statement in full, and I'll link to the sources in the description box below. But what do you think is going to be the next step? Will it be Bannon responding? Will it be Breitbart responding? Will it be a war between Trump and the alternative media, or just Breitbart? And how do you feel about the statement as I close? How do you feel about the statement that Trump made about Bannon trying to represent the alternative side, the side that's against the leftist mainstream media, but at the same time, he is basically part of that same system himself, because it's all about trying to build himself up and trying to build the website Breitbart up? Whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.